Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Mahfouz Rahman. Welcome to our fortnightly web conference. As you know, this initiative was taken to update pest situation or any outbreak, as well as crop production and nutrient management issues. Please send us your opinion whether we need to do it more frequently or less frequently. And also suggest us what are the topics we need to cover. Today we have two presenters, Dr. Daniel Frank and Dr. Mira Danilovich. Both presentations may take half an hour or so. Please hold your questions. We'll have plenty of time for discussion. The first presentation by Dr. Daniel Frank. We often think about harmful insects, but very less time we spend on what are the beneficial insects. So Daniel will talk to us about common beneficial insects in the home and home landscape.
So who's on the phone right now? I hear Barbara. Anybody else? All right.
Oh, Barbara. Oh.
It's all you, Barbara. All right. Well, so the first AgBeats that we did, one of the comments that we had was from Bruce Lloyd, who wanted to hear more about some common beneficial insects that were in the landscape. So I've kind of tailored this presentation for that. Hey, John, how are you doing?
I'm good, Daniel.
Good. Okay, so we're just getting started right now. 10 common beneficial insects. I'll do a top 10 list here. So at number 10 here we have the green lacewing, sometimes known as the common lacewing. It's probably one of the more prevalent beneficial insects that we have in the landscape. So we have the adult right here. These are the eggs, the larvae. So the eggs are usually going to be laid on the undersides of leaves on these kind of tiny stalks. The purpose of that is just to kind of keep the eggs out of reach from other predators that may be in the environment. So whenever you see this, that's really characteristic of lacewing eggs. So that's something that you want to leave alone on the leaf surface. So when those eggs hatch, this is the larval stage here. The larvae are sometimes known as aphid lions because they consume many aphids. Some species over 300 aphids per week, just a single larva. So you can imagine if you have a good population of those in your garden, they can do some serious damage to those aphid populations. They also feed on other small soft-bodied insects like whiteflies, mites, things like that. The adults, probably not going to see the adult too often. They're more nocturnal. If you have porch lights on, they can be attracted to the porch lights. You may see them flying during the day if you disturb vegetation that they're resting in. But the adults also feed on small soft-bodied insects as well. Generally not as much as the larvae though, so the larvae are very important. It's kind of hard to see from this picture, but the larvae have these kind of really large mandibles or jaws which they use to grasp prey. They can kind of look a little bit frightening, so people tend to kill them. Again, you don't want to do that because they are very beneficial. Assassin bugs, also very important predators in the landscape. One of the more common assassin bug species that we have is the wheel bug. They call it the wheel bug because of this kind of unique ridge that they have on their thorax. Kind of looks like spokes going around the wheel there. This can be a very large insect as an adult. It can get up to about 1.5 inches long. It has piercing sucking mouth parts, which it uses to basically pierce into the bug that it's feeding on. So here's a nymphal assassin bug, the immature. So it's piercing its beak into this Colorado potato beetle larvae and basically sucks out the juices like a straw. Again, these are very beneficial. They feed on various caterpillar pests, some of your beetle larvae, beetle pests, and basically whatever it can catch. They're very, very good beneficial insects to have. Soldier beetles coming in at number 8. soldier beetles are another beneficial insect. This is the larvae here. The larvae live in the soil where they feed on insects in the soil. The adults, this is the Pennsylvania leatherwing. This is one of the more common species that we have in the area. This guy also feeds on insects as an adult, but it also feeds on pollen and nectar. So they're very common in flowering plants, and they can actually aid in pollination of those flowering plants. I see them a lot in flowers in trees, so dogwoods, you know, some of your earlier flowering cherries, goldenrod in the fall, that they can be common in that as well. So they'll feed on pollen and nectar, help distribute that pollen, aid in pollination. And then these are the larvae, again, feeding on some of those insects that are going to be in the soil. Minute pirate bug. Minute pirate bug also has piercing, sucking mouth parts that it uses to basically pierce into the insects and feed. These guys are very small. So this is the nymphal stage right here. Notice it doesn't have the fully developed wings, kind of a different color from the adult. The adults have very characteristic kind of a black and white checkered pattern. But they also feed on a wide variety of insects, aphids, thrips, whiteflies. Again, very beneficial to have in the landscape. I should probably mention too that minute pirate bugs, common lacewings, two that I've mentioned so far, you can purchase those online. There's various online suppliers that'll sell these insects for biological control purposes. Generally, I recommend releasing these in an enclosed space, such as a greenhouse or high tunnel system, because they are generalist predators. So there's really nothing stopping them from moving outside of the landscape. So if you have an area, you know, that you can kind of keep them somewhat contained in, then they can be very beneficial. If you just release them in an outdoor garden, again, there's nothing really that's going to keep them there. They're likely to just leave. Big-eyed bug. This is another bug. They call it big-eyed bug because they have very large compound eyes. Here's a nymphal stage here. Again, nymphal stage, not reproductively mature. Doesn't have those fully functioning wings the adults do. Big-eyed bug, very common in lawns, lawn landscapes where they feed on chinch bug, another nipteran, another bug pest in lawns. Sometimes they can be misidentified as pests. So people, you know, spray their lawn with an insecticide and wipe these guys out, and they have further problems. So if you have chinch bug problems in your lawn, it's a good idea to look for these guys before you treat with an insecticide. A lot of the lawn insecticides that are used, a lot of them for chinch bug and some of these other pests contain a pyrethroid. And those pyrethroids are highly toxic to these insects and will wipe them out. So you want to be careful with that. Big-eyed bug can be found in other agricultural systems as well. Again, they feed on a wide variety of small insects, anything from aphids, whiteflies, mites, things like that. Damsel bug, another bug, family Navidae. These guys are also beneficial. I see these quite a bit in grasses, tall grasses, but again, they can be found throughout the landscape. So this is the nymphal stage here. Again, no fully functioning wings, a little bit different color than the adults. The adults somewhat elongate, fairly small, about 1/4 inch in size. Generally a drab color, drab brown, maybe even a kind of a lightish yellow, but tend to be more drab brown in color. A little bit, they hunt a little bit like praying mantids. They have those forelegs or those front legs that they use for grasping prey. So they can ambush or sometimes stalk their prey, but they'll use those grasping legs to grab it, bring it in, and then use those piercing, sucking mouth parts to stab into the insect and feed on it. So this one's feeding on a plant bug, a lygus bug, taking that guy out of the system. Syrphid flies. So these are a true fly, very beneficial to have. So this is the larvae. Fly larvae are called maggots. So this is the maggot larvae here. and they are parasitic. They feed on various insects, guys feeding on aphids, and then these are the adults. The adults tend to mimic bees or wasps in coloration, so they can be misidentified for those insects quite often. But as adults, they tend to feed on nectar of flowers, so they aid in pollination. They tend to have some hairs on the body too, which kind of facilitate those pollination services, get the pollen on the hair and can transfer it to various flowers. One question I get asked a lot is how do you identify some of these beneficial flies from things like bees and wasps? So flies have just one pair of wings, two membranous wings, whereas bees and wasps have 4 membranous wings. Flies do have 4 wings, but those hind wings are greatly reduced. You can't see those unless you have a magnifying lens or a microscope to look at those. So it looks like they just have those one pair of membranous wings. Also, if you look at the eyes are very large, and they kind of converge or meet at the top of the head, or almost meet at the top of the head, whereas your bees and wasps, the eyes are going to be located at the sides of the head, so they're spaced wide apart. Also, your bees and wasps have long elbowed antennae, whereas your flies have very short antennae, so you're not going to really see those antennae unless you look very close. So that's a good way to recognize these flies. Also, surface flies or hover flies, they call them hover flies because they hover above the flowers, and bees and wasps, they don't do that. So if you see an insect hovering around the flower, it's probably this guy. So you kind of get a 1-2 punch. You get the larvae taking care of some of those pest insects, and then the adults that greatly aid in pollination. Ground beetles come in at number 3. I get a lot of calls about ground beetles. What are these? Are they bad? No, they're very beneficial. They call them ground beetles because they spend most of their time running around on the ground actively pursuing their prey. Ground beetles, you can recognize them just mostly any black beetle that you see scurrying around on the ground is probably going to be these guys. They can range in size from anywhere from a 1/4 inch to up to 2 inches in size sometimes. But they have these chewing mouth parts, very large mandibles or jaws, which they use to capture prey, feeding on anything that's on or in the soil. Lady beetles come in at number 2. A lot of different species of lady beetles out there. This is the twice-stab lady beetle. I see this commonly in a lot of orchard systems, tree fruit orchards. This is Coleomagilla maculata. I see this guy a lot as well. This you may recognize as the multicolored Asian lady beetle. So this can be a pest in homes in the fall and winter, but outside it really does a good job taking care of aphids and other small insects. You can recognize the Asian lady beetle from some of these native ones by looking at this region of the thorax called the prothorax. It's going to be kind of a white cream color, and you're going to see 4 black dots that kind of look like a W. And so that's one way to recognize the multicolored Asian lady beetle from some of our other lady beetle species that look kind of similar. But here's the different life stages. The larvae, right here, the pupa, and the adult. So a lot of people don't recognize the larvae, but kind of look like little alligators. Very beneficial, more so than the adults, because they feed on more of those insects than the adults do. The adults also feed on insects, but not to the level that the larvae do. I get a lot of calls about, I see these kind of orange things on my leaves or stuck to the top of my leaves. That's the pupa, pupal stage right there. So again, I want to leave those alone if you see them. Let them hatch out. And last, I have the honeybee at number 1, but really this can go for any bee. They greatly aid in pollination services, so they do a lot of good in the landscape. Honeybee is actually not native to North America. It's from Europe, European honeybee, brought over in the 1600s with the early colonists. Of course, they can be considered a domesticated animal because we move the hives around, we get various products from them, such as honey. But honeybees, as well as some of our native bee species, really taking a hit recently. One of the big ones that's affecting our native bee species is habitat loss. So a lot of land being devoted to industrial agriculture, to urban development. So a lot of the flowers that they kind of co-evolved with, that they need for their survival, are no longer there, or no longer there at the quantities, for survival. So a lot of problems occurring with habitat loss. Honeybees, they have multiple factors affecting them. Of course, since they get moved around a lot, start out in California with the almond orchards and then move around to Texas, Florida, up to the Dakotas. And a lot of times they're placed in these big agricultural fields where it's just one plant. Honeybees are species that forage just on a wide variety of plants. They need a diverse diet. When they're kind of forced to feed on just a single host plant, they're not getting a lot of the nutrients they need, so it makes them stressed, basically. Of course, they have problems with various parasites as well, parasites and diseases. Of course, Varroa mite is one of the big ones, parasitic mite. And, a lot of these pesticides that you use to control Varroa mite and these diseases also affect the honeybee negatively. And of course, habitat loss causing problems, and then misuse of insecticides can also cause problems. So just one of the questions I get is how can I increase the number of beneficial insects that I have in my landscape? Of course, as I mentioned, for some of these species, you can buy them online from various suppliers. You can purchase them if you want. But really, if you want to keep them in the landscape, you need to have some type of food source for them. And one of the great ways to do that is to plant a lot of flowering plants. So this will be good for your syrphid flies, your bee species, but it would also be good for some of those predatory insects as well, because when insects are in low supply, they can easily move to these flower sources to get the pollen as kind of that protein source, and the nectar is kind of the sugar source to tide them over until other insects pop up that they can feed on. So having flowers in the landscape, always a good idea, not only for your pollinators, but for some of these beneficial insects as well. So that's all I have. I'll turn the time over to Mira, and then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Our next presenter is Dr. Mira Danilovich. She'll be talking about emerging problems in the landscape. As you know, we have been having lots of problems with evergreen, especially on leyland cypress, and these problems will keep coming, so we need to have some preparation to understand how to combat those problems.
Good morning. First of all, this is not the best title for my presentation. It's not necessarily emerging in terms of new problems with the landscape, but some problems that are appearing in our landscapes at this particular time of the season. So now that we kind of cleared that up, I want to show just some of the pictures here to show the symptoms. We have problems. No. A little bit of a technical problem again. It does not want to advance. Oh, which one? This one here? All right. For the people that attended our very first session, I was talking about some of the fire blight symptoms and stuff, but at this point, we are seeing a lot of shoot blight. So here you see the very beginning of it on apples, and this is a little bit more advanced stage, and this is really the final stage of a shoot blight, where you have pretty much the whole shoot with all the leaves on it dead. I took this couple of pictures. This one is at our organic farm, and this one is on my trip down to Mingo County, one of the ornamental pears. So at this point, with a not necessarily this week because it cooled off, but whenever we have high humidity or wetting events and high temperatures, this is favorable condition for spread of this particular disease. Now, there's another one that you're going to be seeing a lot, particularly if you have nearby some cedar, like junipers. Cedar apple rust, some of the quite attractive symptoms actually, but I get often calls on it, and people are sending me some of the pictures, just asking what this is. This one here, again, the weather conditions have been very favorable for development of cherry leaf spot. And so if you do have any cherries around or people are calling, I have received, as a matter of fact, just this morning, one of the calls about the cherry leaf spot. Humid conditions favor, as any other fungal disease, this one as well. Bacterial leaf spot, in all the stone fruit. So if you have clientele with peaches, this happens to be apricot, plums, cherries, you're going to see a lot of these symptoms like, lesions, necrotic lesions on the leaves. These are the symptoms on the fruit itself. And so oftentimes, we had these problems that kind of really flare up. So this is the part of the season we're going to see a lot of that. Black rot, and believe it or not, this is a well-managed vineyard, but there are a few spots here, and you probably can't see, but there are really small ones here, some lesions. There's a lesion right here. This is a little bit more obvious. So again, this was just taken recently, last week as a matter of fact. And you're going to be seeing a little bit more of these symptoms at this time in the next few weeks. Well, this is one that have been bothering me, driving like 70, 80 miles per hour on a freeway, and you see the chunks of forest, where you can see definitely some discoloration, and you can pick up the groupings of the trees. I finally had to, my curiosity got the better of me, so I had to stop and pull over and take a closer look. So this is what I found, and this is the little culprit. It's tulip leaf miner, or sassafras weevil. You can see that with that little snub beetle. Daniel just put a really nice write-up about it. What was it, like last week, Daniel? Yeah. It's an email, so if you kind of check your emails, you'll see all the explanation about the biology and the feeding methods and stuff. So you'll also find out that it goes on magnolia. It has really nice, fleshy, thick leaves, so it has plenty of food source for them at different stages of development, of course. This year it's widely spread. I went from one end of the state to the other, and last week going up to Michigan, I was going to Pennsylvania, and a great portion of Pennsylvania has the same problem. So it seems that this year was very favorable for them. Now, the fall webworm again. It's already happening, this picture was taken on one of the rest areas, again, going down in the southern part of the state. On one of the This was taken in Clay County, one of the homeowners' property, and this happened to be on redbud, eastern redbud. So here we have eggs that are ready to hatch, and some already. Oh, is it? Okay. And we have them here. Some of these larvae. Well, anyway, I thought this was the fall leopard, but Daniel says it's Eastern 10 caterpillar. Though I thought the Eastern 10 caterpillar was done.
It is. It's the CA cases that are
okay. Well, anyway, so this is what we have. A lot. I've seen a lot of those. I don't know what's going on, why it's so prevalent. I'm going to be also mentioning a few of the problems with the lawns that you're very likely to get some calls. I got about 3 or 4 calls on this. There's a dour spot where you see some of the smaller lesions, about anywhere from about 2 to about 5-6 inches across, and you can see that they have kind of whitish, almost bleached appearance. And another telltale sign is when you look closely into the lesion here, see it's almost like a hour, hourglass, shaped. And here we have it here too. And early in the morning, if you kind of go in and look at it, you can even see some of the mycelia, some of these little fuzzies down at the bottom of the blade. Brown patch, as a matter of fact, I was just yesterday in Preston County looking at a lawn that had really established brown patch. If you kind of get down on your knees, and you'll see some of these mycelia spread all around. They also have appearance of a sort of like a water-soaked blade, leaf blade. This time of the year, you should be seeing some problems like this, particularly if you have some of the cool season grasses like Kentucky blues, fescue, ryegrass, that type of thing. Red thread, that's another one. It's kind of easy to spot, again, pretty much regular, circular patches. And when you get down and take a closer look, pull a few blades, you will see the red color of this, and it appears as like a thread. So that's why they call it a red thread. Again, under the moist conditions, you're going to see a little bit more of this. And on the starved lawns, nitrogen-starved lawns, where you don't have really a good nutrient regime, so you're going to see a little bit more of these problems. Now, I would just like to mention that we're getting into the season that is optimal for taking some of the leaf samples for tissue analysis to better determine your nutritional needs. As I was talking about, through my Mass Gardener classes, the soil sample is good to give you certain data, primarily pH, and what's available within the soil. However, the snapshot what's going on actually within the plant itself, you can get only from the tissue sample and from the tissue analysis. So if you're talking about the trees, you're going to be taking the fully developed leaves, not the ones from the very bottom of the shoot, nor the ones from the very top of the shoot from this season's growth, but from the middle. So this is going to give you a good representation of what's going on with within the plant itself. If you are dealing with grapes, again, this is the shoot. Start from the top and get to the fully developed, the first fully developed leaf, getting from the top of the shoot, is the one to be picked. Most labs are doing the petiole analysis. I know the A&L and there are a couple of, well, let me put it this way, a few other labs are just starting to do the leaf analysis with the grapes, but the common practice is just to kind of do the petiole analysis on it. So, as far as nutrition and sampling for tissue analysis, this is just to mention it because this is the optimal time to do it, July to about mid-September. And this would be the end of what I had for you this morning.
Okay, thank you, Mira and Daniel, for the presentation. I know it's a busy time of the year. We did not get a good attendance at this time, but probably everyone knows that we'll archive it. So they will come back and then watch it at a convenient time. But we have time for discussions, and if you have any questions. And also we have our interim director, Ronnie Helmandola, here in the audience. Barbara, can you hear us? She's on the way.
Mahfouz, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
This is real pertinent to me. I've got a lady bringing in some grass today, predominantly fescue. I've surmised or just thought that it could be annual bluegrass that's turning brown, but with Mira's discussion, it could be dollar spot or brown patch. So I suspect we ought to send them to you, Mahfouz, right? And
Sure.
Is that right?
Yes. We actually we got few other samples, and yesterday I determined one of them was actually dollar spot. So you know, especially with this humidity in the air, we get disease problems flare up.
Are these restricted pesticides, the Rubigon and?
These are restricted, but you can use Immunex, which is also one of the anti-steroids, and you can get it over the summer.
So that is miclobutanil that is found as Immunox or Bayer Advanced miclobutanil. Those are available from local stores.
Okay.
But I should be able to send you
Good.
A recommendation once I get the sample.
Great. Thank you.
Yep. John, do you have any?
Well, as I say, I've got a pepper plant I'm getting ready to package up and send to you. I have had actually had two individuals. The one that tried getting a hold of me last week while I was in camp. The other came walking in the office first of the week. They've got pepper plants. Both of them came from the same greenhouse, but two completely different areas. But they're having problems. I've got a bunch of pictures I can send you, but they're just completely dropping the leaves. The leaves are getting, it looks more like a little bit of a burn, around the edges and things to me, not significant
John,
spotting per se.
I know what the problem is.
Uh,
I got quite a few samples. It's bacterial spot.
Okay, well I was thinking that was a good chance of what it was, but.
Yeah, yeah. So once again, due to this rainy condition, I mean, it might have come with seeds or from previous years residue in the soil. But at this point, probably the best option for us to apply some copper hydroxide, and few other options we have to remove the fallen leaves right away. Otherwise, this bacteria with the rain splash will spread very, very quickly. But anyway, send me the photos and samples.
Okay. I was going to say, on the spread of that, because I know the one individual said, him and his neighbor had both got plants from the same location, and their gardens apparently are both on kind of next to the property lines, because he said their plants are actually probably sitting within 5 feet of each other.
Mm-hmm.
The one gentleman, his plants are looking, very rough. Like I said, they've lost a very large portion of their leaves, and what's left, don't look very healthy. And then but he said his neighbors, look perfectly fine. I mean, because he was asking, about the spread and things, how easy stuff, that would spread versus, and I didn't know, is it that, or is there just a susceptibility difference between, the resistance between varieties?
So do you know what both varieties are the same or different?
I think they've got a couple of different varieties, and I forget what all he said they were.
Absolutely, John. There are quite a few varieties that those are resistant against bacterial spot. So that could be one reason that one grower did get it, another grower did not. At the same time, if they had disease problem last year, there may be some residue, some stubble in the soil. That could be the source as well. So as you know, like this bacterial disease is mostly spread by splashing rain, but still the distance they can travel is very limited compared to airborne fungal spores. So it's still possible that variety is resistant, and that the grower that did not get it probably did not have any inoculum spores from previous years. But the options for bacterial diseases are very, very limited. So my main recommendations are applying copper hydroxide co-side of CHAMP and apply regalia. Regalia induces resistance in plants. It's organically acceptable. So those are the two options at this point we have.
Okay. What did you say that second one was?
Regalia. That's an extract from giant knotweed. I'm not sure that you can buy it from local store, but it's available online.
Okay.
Any other question or? Okay, thank you.
Are these being posted? These
yes, Becky Osborne is here, so I think she will archive it and post it very soon.